Hi everyone. Today we have with us Team DSNLU Visakhapatnam. Team DSNLU is here with us to talk about their experience in the FDI Moot 2023. The team has finished 5th in the global oral final rounds. And additionally, Ayushman from this team has also been recognized as the 12th best speaker globally. I'm very glad to have you all here to talk about your experience and share your strategy with our audience. Before we start talking about your Moot journey, I request you all to please introduce yourselves to the audience. Please.
Thank you so much for having us here. It's our pleasure. We'll go in the reverse batch order. We'll have our junior members introduce themselves first, and then we'll round up with the senior members. Please go ahead.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarthika Singhal and I'm third year law student at DSNLU Visakhapatnam.
Hi everybody, my name is Katya Singh. I'm also in my third year.
Hi everyone, I'm Vanila and I'm also in my third year of law school.
Hello, I'm Vinayak Bakshi. I'm in my fourth year.
Hi everyone, I'm Ayushman Sovani and I'm in my final year of my 5-year course in DSNLU.
All right, great. Thank you. So could you tell us about the structure of this competition to begin with? So the qualifiers, the memo submission rounds, and what can you tell us about your team composition?
Absolutely. You all already know that we're a cross-batch team. We have a mix of junior and senior members here, which I think was very necessary for a moot like FDI because it's a multifaceted moot. The moot begins with regional rounds for areas that have a high number of participants, typically South Asia, East Asia, and Europe. In fact, this year they had an All Africa regionals as well. So for us, the South Asia regionals were our first step in this moot, where we have to submit a skeleton of our arguments, which is essentially just the headings and subheadings of the arguments we want to make, and we will flesh out in our memo. This skeleton, as well as the oral rounds in the South Asia, then determine who qualifies for the global rounds. We were lucky enough to place in the top 4 in the South Asia qualifiers, along with our skeleton and our oral submissions, which is why we directly qualified to the world rounds. The world rounds happened in Lucknow this year in Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National University. And before the oral rounds themselves was the memo submission in September. The unique nature of this moot demands the memorial submissions because the total scores that are evaluated to determine which team goes into the top 16 or the top 8 in the global finals is a cumulative score of both the memorials as well as the oral rounds per particular, or the oral round scores per particular round. So that this memorial submission and the oral rounds is an exhaustive way of measuring any team's capacity in the FDI.
All right. So since we are talking about the South Asian regional qualifiers, when did you start your preparation and what challenges, let's say, that you faced, which in turn prepared you for the upcoming rounds?
So we started our preparation for this moot in the month of May 2023. This was our first step towards international mooting. Academics and internships are a challenge that every other team faces. So our whole ambition, it was all created by our coach who used to say that this moot is your project and you need to do it sincerely. The major challenge that we have faced during South Asia regionals were with respect to how to manage our time and how to be at that stage. We were still not yet clear about our certain research topics. So although we have practiced a few rounds right before our group phase, which helped us to prepare good speeches, however, we were aware of the fact that we might face 3 kinds of panel. 1, an active bench that might derail your entire speech through their rapid fire round of questions. 2, a mild bench which would allow you to take they would necessarily just assess your style. And 3, a moderate bench that would allow you to finish your speech and ask a minimum set of questions. The thing that held us during our group phase is that we used to go back, assess our situation, rethink over our weak points, and also strengthen our strong points. So in this way, this was actually held us in our elimination phase. Group phase, we had like 2 good rounds and 2 moderate rounds. And it was the last round that was the deciding factor for us, which we thankfully won by a margin of 1 mark. So as the result says, we are the semi-finalists, and I owe all of this to our group phase. We like burnt the midnight oil and practiced whole night and remodeled our speeches those 3 days.
Right. So being an international moot, we can't expect the process to have stayed uniform throughout. So did any unanticipated event, let's say, occur that which required quick thinking and fast decision making?
I will say the whole process, in fact, was never uniform because when it came to the skeleton rounds and the first South Asia regionals, it required a lot of brainstorming sessions because we five went into the arbitration region, especially investment arbitration. The problems were very new when we compared with the earlier problems, and so a lot of worry and a lot of things we were jungling upon because we didn't knew whether we were making even sense or not. Specifically for the memo rounds which came after the South Asia regionals, the PO4 got released a week before, and it was completely on issue one which I was handling. So I had to restructure my whole argument, derail it, and then form a new argument, and it was a lot of very exhaustive, especially for all of us at the crucial moment. So this was all that happened, and
Right. So the memorial submission is also a very crucial aspect of a moot court competition. Can you share insights in your team's approach, the collaborative efforts involved, and the role of your coaches, in refining the memorial?
I'll take up that. Coming to the memorials, as Ayushman had earlier highlighted, memorials play a very major role, especially in FDI, in determining your cumulative score. A total percentage of 25% is taken from both your skeleton and your memorial to add up to your oral scores. So having a bad memo would not allow you that leverage over teams that do better. And I can actually cite a case where we were against a team, a Greece team in fact, during the global orals, and they won the round only on the basis of the memo. Like the difference of points that we had was because of the memo. They had the best claimant memo, which obviously we couldn't top at that point in time. So which all the more emphasizes that although we had like 4 good rounds, memos are all the more important for you to get through further in the competition. One of the foremost things that we did as a team, and I owe it all to my coaches, Emily and Vishu. Emily is based in Canada. She's with the Global Affairs Canada, a foreign diplomat right now. And Vishwanath Petkar was an LLM student from Humboldt University, Berlin. So we were coordinating 3 different time zones, Canada, Germany, and India. And it was a really stressful phase. Most of our work would start around this point in time, and it would go on till like early daytime according to India time, because it would be afternoon for them. So during the initial phase of our competition, the minute we decided that we were going to do FDI, our coach had created a Google Drive for all of us. And that was a major source or hub for us to keep everything in a very structured and organized manner. Because more often than not, you lose a lot of documents because mooting requires you to have that extensive research and also gathering and organizing and compartmentalizing your stuff. So for that, the drive really helped us. In addition to the memorial submissions that we made, FDI is also, I need to thank the organizers for so succinctly maintaining the FDI archives. So the FDI archives have the memorials of all the teams that have participated, all the skeletons of teams that have participated, and it is not as expensive in any other moot. Therefore, it's an abundant resource for any team that would want to take that up, and that would definitely act as guidance. Further, because it was a Google Docs, all of us could comment on the document at the same point in time and work on it simultaneously. So the only instance of the intense Google Meets was up until 3 a.m. in the morning one day, and we were like, okay, our schedules have to really get past this time zones. But we did fare through and we pulled all of it. So
Absolutely.
happy at the end of it.
Absolutely. So transitioning to offline rounds, like you said, the previous rounds were online. So this transition to offline rounds with the diverse international teams and arbitrators can be very daunting. So how did your team adapt to this strategy, and how did you overcome challenges in this space, considering the different perspectives and approaches from teams worldwide?
I'll take this up for 2 reasons. Firstly, I thankfully have a little bit of experience in terms of offline mooting, especially in international arbitration, having participated in the WIS Moot earlier this year, the 30th WIS Moot in Vienna. So there was a little bit of experience that I could pass on to my teammates in terms of the little things that you need to look out for, the demeanor in which you act, the way you posture yourself, how you refer to problems. If you don't pay too much attention, you get called out on that, all of those things. But I think the larger credit should go to our coaches because of the fact that they both come from very different jurisdictions, very different practices in law. Canadian law and the approach that they have towards international investment arbitration, German law, the civil law systems, and their approach towards international investment arbitration is vastly different from what we're taught here in a common law country like India. So we kind of threw our ideas against the ideas that they had, and we went with what stuck best. And that gave us a very holistic perspective on every single sub-issue that we dealt with. And when it comes to the actual pleadings themselves, I think what helped us the best was just the sheer hours that we spent practicing. There wasn't a day after our memo submissions where 1-2 pairs of speakers weren't practicing at least twice a day. So that kind of, it makes your nerves a little more calm when you enter the main rounds.
Right. So your journey from the preliminary rounds to the top 8 is very commendable. Could you highlight a specific strategy or anything that you believe significantly contributed to your team's success during this progression?
If I may, I think going that far into the competition really hinged on two main points that we picked up as we were practicing. Firstly was the importance of debriefing once the round was over. And we were really regular with that practice. So if no matter whether we had a practice round, no matter we had an internal round, maybe even if it was a preliminary round in the South Asia regionals or even the global rounds, every round had its own takeaways. And we did discuss those takeaways right after the round ended. So everybody had a minute or two or a few minutes to settle down. And after that, we discussed the entirety of the round, what we could have done better, what went better and should be done more, and things that absolutely should not be done. And from that point, we come to the second half of our strategy, which was recuperating all these losses. So whatever we have learned, whatever is the takeaway from the round, has to be incorporated going into the next round. We could not just talk about things and let them be on the table. We had to pick them up, incorporate them in our speeches, and then go ahead. And that was again a practice that Vishu and Amelie really hammered into us.
Actually, if I can just add one more point to that. This was a habit that we picked up very early on. We never hesitated in rewriting our speeches. In fact, it became a common practice among the speakers to write a new speech before every single practice round. So by the end of this moot, we had about 120 different versions of our speech to choose from, whichever one we liked the best.
Lastly, Ayushman, could you please enlighten us with some tips to bag such best speaker positions?
I'll let Vinayak go first on this, then Vanilla and I'll follow it up because the three of us, we kind of shared the burden of speaking throughout the course of this moot. So Vinayak, if you'd like to.
I think the one point that I will make I believe is the most important, is to be really thorough when you're going into a round, when you're speaking. There should not be any bit of information that is not read or that you're not aware of, because you don't want to be in a situation where you've been surprised by a question or you're visibly shook. So I think being thorough with your preparation and being aware of all your material is very important.
Adding on to what Vinayak has said, it is your content, and I would like to quote what my coach has mentioned, that it is 20 to 30% of your content and the rest is how you present it. It's your presentation that actually takes you far, because at the end of the day, 150 teams are competing with the same problem, and more often than not, the same things are repeated, but it's how you present it to the panel of arbitrators there, and the more persuasive you are, the further you get ahead in terms of convincing them, whether you are able to answer the questions that they're asking, whether you are able to tie a beautiful story that is told through the exhibits, through the propositions. That will most definitely take you a long distance, a long way in the competition.
Both of those suggestions are incredibly precise and valuable. And I'll just kind of top it off by a general piece of advice I give all of my juniors as well that ask me how to essentially elevate their game as a mooter, as a speaker. I tell them that no one walks into law school a good mooter. We all start from scratch. Some of us might have a knack for speaking, some of us might not. And that's just the natural course of things. But I have lost to speakers I did not think spoke as well as me. And I have won rounds where I did not think I was a better speaker than the person in front of me, simply because there is more to mooting than just a fancy way of putting words forward. You need to know your content very well, as Vinayak said. You need to be persuasive, as Vinila mentioned. But most of all, you need to understand the room that you're in. You cannot go on tangents, you cannot be caught up in your own world and try to make a point when there is very specific demand of a very specific kind of answer or a way of pleading in any given moot. International arbitration specifically requires you to try to resolve a dispute, not win a case. And so the practice of trying to defeat the other side needed to be unlearned, and the practice of trying to actually resolve the dispute at hand had to be learned from scratch for all of us to be able to actually make an impact as speakers.
All right, team. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for being here and sharing your experience with us. I'm sure this session would be very helpful for everyone watching it. Thanks again for being here. I, on behalf of INCC, wish you all the very best for your journey ahead.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.